Hello everybody, back again. Today we are at one of my favorite places in the world, along the Perkiomen Railroad, or former Perkiomen Railroad I should say. Today we are in Collegeville, Pennsylvania, which was, before the railroad days, was called Freeland. But because of issues with the railroad, it was renamed Collegeville just before railroad construction started. As you may have remembered, the railroad construction on the Perkiomen started in 1867, and Collegeville, where I'm standing right now, was the first place it reached from Perk Junction, right next to Oaks, I guess. From Oaks to Collegeville, this was the first section of rail completed, and one of the last ones to remain in service, besides what's still currently in service from Pennsburg to Emmaus today. This section of the Perkiomen Railroad reached Collegeville in 1868, and the original station, which was a wooden station and a wooden freight station, were both built right where we're standing. Hard to believe that the railroad actually ran right through here, right through this parking lot, and ran right about where the diner is, right about where you see those vents on the diner, right about where these parking blocks are, is pretty much where the station's at. Like I said, the station was built in 1868. It was a wooden station, and it had a wooden freight station all along also with it. Later on in 1898, the station was rebuilt into a brick building. Oftentimes in the railroad history, especially along the Perkiomen, the wooden stations were often rebuilt because of fire. That's not the case here. Not right away, it wasn't. The brick station was basically built just to accommodate more traffic and more people, because it needed to be a bigger station. So in 1898, the brick station was built. Passenger service on the Perkiomen ended in July 1955. And if you look at some of the photos that our Historical Society has shared in Collegeville, this was one of the stops before they got to Perk Junction. This was one of the stops along the way on the last run of the Perkiomen passenger train in 1955. It was Reading Railroad at that time. So right about here is where the station sat, and like I said, in 1955 they did a stop here on the last passenger train. The last freight train to come through here, although some people will claim later on, but most research points to 1976, just after the same year Conrail took over. Late in 1976, I'd say probably by December or so, was the last freight train. Again, at the time, Conrail was running both ends of the line after the Reading merged into Conrail. The track, much like down through Red Hill and Pennsburg and Green Lane, this section of track down here survived until 1980. So 1980, the track was taken out of here, and the last freight train came through here in 1976. I think in 1976 it went as far as Ron's, where the Pennsylvania Live Steamers is at. I'm pretty sure it went down just about that far, because the substation, there's stories of parts of the substation down, the electrical substation, being brought in by rail. And like I said, 1980, when other rail was being removed, the rail was removed out of here. The rail came right down through here. Station, just about where that pole's at, is about where the station's sat. If you look at this picture, you can see the brick station, which was the one that was built later on. Actually, I forgot to mention, the brick station survived up into the early 80s. Sometime, I don't have the exact date, but sometime in the early 80s, it was turned into actually, hold on, I have a picture of it. After it was done being a railroad station, it was used as an antique store. I have a photo of it here. Damn wind's blowing my paper around. You can see it was called Oak Antique. I have other pictures. I don't have them with me, but I have other photos. This was near the end of its existence when it was an antique store, the brick station. There was a group of people that tried to save it, and it ended up burning down somehow. We could go a little conspiracy minded here and talk about you know, accidentally burnt, right? Just like they wanted to save it, but then it burnt. That happens sometimes in historic preservation. A group's fighting to save something and miraculously it burns, or a backhoe bucket hits a wall by accident and knocks it over. But that's the crooked games people play. So the station survived into the very early 80s. It was then burnt down mysteriously and was replaced by a Pizza Hut. So if anybody's ever heard of the Collegeville Pizza Hut, the Pizza Hut sat right where the station once sat. I don't know exactly when the Pizza Hut was torn down, but modern day the Collegeville Diner now sits on that spot where the Pizza Hut was and where the Collegeville station was. But if you look on this picture, you can see the wooden freight station and the brick. This is from 1963, one of Dave Alsberger's photos. And you can see a building. If you see the building with the peak and the windows have changed. And there was some type of little outbuilding there. Might have been, from the looks of it, that was probably an outhouse. It sat right there. If you look, the building with the windows with the peak is still there. So if you look, you can see the peak. That building, they changed the windows around when they did the siding. That is right there. You can see how close the station sat. So if you figure about where I'm at, right about here, I would say. Right in here is probably about where the station sat. Now I have other photos here people look at. This picture is fairly unique in a few ways. You can see the building with the peak on it, and you see a building right next to it with all the windows and the door. That building is right there. Come on, focus, camera. There you go. See the building with the windows right next to the building with the peaked roof? That is that. There's the peaked roof building and the stone or the cinder block building with the windows and the doors. You can see the bottom door, window. Those are the two buildings there. Those are those two buildings. What's unique about this photo is that's a Pennsylvania Railroad caboose. See, it's a Pensy caboose. It was certainly not uncommon for freight equipment to leave their home rails and to travel long distances. And the Pennsylvania Railroad really didn't run all that far from here. The Pennsylvania Railroad actually crossed over down outside of Oaks. Actually, there was a railroad diamond where the Pensy and the Perkiomen actually cross over in a diamond just outside of Oaks near Perk Junction. But like I said, if you look, you can see that building. It's that one right there. So you can see probably right about where this caboose is. It's probably about where I'm standing right now. There's a freight platform and looks like a baggage car. That's the you can see the freight station and the brick station, just like here. So like I said, original building was built in 1868, brick building built in 1898, brick building was burnt down in the early 80s, Pizza Hut, and after the Pizza Hut, the Collegeville Diner was built. Here's another photo. This is another later one. Hope this is getting, the sun's really being weird right here. You can see the brick station and the freight station. I figured I would do this today because it's not always that very well thought of down here, to tell you the truth. The outbuilding, that's quite a neat little building there. I love this picture. More likely an outhouse. Now the freight station was torn down. I don't know when that was torn down. That was torn down, I think, before the actual station was. So we're going to walk over here. Like I said, those are the buildings in the picture. So the station sat right about in here. This is right about where the station sat. This is now a trail. This is part of the Perkiomen Trail. Boy, the stories these buildings could talk. Having all that freight traffic all those years coming by here. It's unbelievable. So we're on the Perkiomen Trail now. But this is one of the parts of the Perkiomen Trail that that was never, this part of the Perkiomen Trail here, this is not the railroad. The railroad actually went down right through the center of the parking lot where I was just pointing out. There's really no remnants of anything from the train station along here or the railroad at all. But if you walk down this way and you cross this road, which we'll see what happens if we can. It's quite a popular area. It's Main Street in Collegeville up here. So here's the Collegeville Diner that was built once the Pizza Hut was done. You see over that way, that's probably where the station's sat. So once the Pizza Hut went away, Collegeville Diner came up. Unfortunately, it will never be the same as the a beautiful historic train station. But this is Main Street in Collegeville right here. It's very congested. Yeah, it's hard to believe the tracks used to come right through here, right about where that sign is. They came right through here. The tracks crossed the road right here in 29. And we're going to go over here. We can see the tracks over on this side once we get across the street. If it's at all possible.
Wait to cross.
Yeah, I'm waiting.
Wait.
Gotta love urban sprawl. Another little historical note. If you go down this way, you see all the way down there, as far as you can see, there's an old stone arch bridge. Very heavily traveled to this day. And is actually one of the top 5 oldest in-use bridges in the country. If you look it up, it's I don't know what it's called, but it's in Collegeville. It's a Collegeville bridge. If you look down there, cars, you can see part of the arch of the bridge. You can see it down there if you look down past the cars. But that bridge there, it was built in the 1700s, and like I said, it's one of the oldest bridges still in use in the country. I think it's in the top 5, actually. If you look up top 5 or top 10 oldest bridges in the country. So we're going to try to cross here. There we go. Now let's see if I get hit by a car, it would make a great, it would probably add my views. Instead of getting like 80 views, I might get 180 views. So we just crossed the street. This is the Perkiomen Trail. I'd say about 80% of the Perkiomen Trail, give or take, is the former Perkiomen. So if you look right about where that trash can is, right there, the line crossed 29, came through here, came right in here, and that's the trail. That's the Perkiomen down there. So if you see, the line came right across here, right at the diner. And what's really neat is they actually took a little bit of effort here, and they actually have a little plaque to commemorate the Perk Railroad, which unfortunately on the Perkiomen, there's not a lot of stuff that's makes mention of the railroad that was once here. These are the pictures from the last run. Yeah, which one? This picture. That was a picture from here. So you see in the sign it says CV, that's the telegraph reporting mark. This was the last Okay, so anyway, so this is a picture from the last run on the Perk right here. That's the Collegeville station. You can see the CV for the telegraph. Every telegraph station with a telegraph had a call letters, so they would know what station the telegraphs were coming from. Collegeville's was CV. To show some of the history, the trolley line came through here. There's an old timetable for the Perk Railroad timetable. This is down the road here. You can still see the trail when the trail goes up along the road. Beautiful T1, Iron Horse Rambles. See, there's the bridge I was talking about. It's just down here. That bridge is still in use. It's one of the oldest in the country. So, we're now on the trail, which was part of the trail that was the railroad. I'm gonna walk down here a little bit. There was a couple remnants of the line down here. I'm gonna see if it's still here. I want to thank you guys if you're still sticking around. A lot of history to cover along the Perk. Lots to see, lots to talk about. So this little zigzaggy part here isn't the railroad, but it's right here, because right here is the main line of the railroad. And this is where it came through. And then it continues all the way down. All the way down through to Green Lane. So, well, maybe next time I'll do this. I'll see you guys sometime soon. We'll see what happens. See when the next video is, I'm not sure. But anyway, thanks for checking it out. And I will see you when I see you.